we shall see the evolution of materials management. The term purchasing or procurement were originally used. Later on, this term was replaced by the supply management. While purchasing deals only with purchase functions, supply management did starting from participating in deciding the specification of materials, value analysis, selection of suppliers and rating of suppliers, including all purchasing activities. Supply managers participate in new product development and are responsible for the selecting sources, managing the cost, developing and nurturing supplier partnerships and strategic alliances, and issuing long-term agreements with carefully selected suppliers. The supply management has major focus on basic two factors. One is to deal with the activities that have great potential for impacting the success of the firm and to be interdisciplinary in nature and integrate actions with those of other important sections of the firm. Till 1950s, purchasing department used to be clerically oriented order placing unit. Later on, progressive firms started giving managerial emphasis, specialization and professionalism on purchasing operations. The purchasing function comprises the activities associated with the acquisition of materials, services and equipment used in purchasing operations. In 1970s, it was augmented by an emphasis on the long-range strategic planning for materials. Since the early 1990s, the strategic emphasis has been enhanced by purchasing participation in various cross-functional teams for various activities such as product design, supplier qualification and selection, quality, commodity management. By accelerating the strategic emphasis by more progressive firms has led to the development of supply management concept. The supply management is a process responsible for the development and management of firm's total supply system, both internal and also the external. Nowadays, materials management concept, which is different from purchasing, procurement and supply management concepts, has emerged and it is becoming popular. This materials management concept is designed to enhance coordination and control of various materials activities. Materials management deals with the following materials activities: purchasing and supply management activities, management of inventories, receiving of materials, storing and warehousing of materials, in-plant handling of materials, production planning, scheduling and control, traffic and transportation. Materials management provides an integrated system approach to the coordination of materials activities and the control of total materials cost. All those major activities which contribute to the cost of materials are assigned to the materials management department. The objective of this is to optimize the performance of materials system. Here materials means raw materials, spare parts, components, factory supplies and packing materials. This constitutes the evolution of materials management. Right from the procuring activity, it has framed as one of the major management function and the interrelated function with the other functional areas like production, marketing, sales, personnel, finance and other departments, other service departments. Now we shall see the history of materials management. Materials management as a discipline was rather slow to evolve as compared to the production and marketing function. The growth of materials management is a separate field of study and one of the great relevance of business performance, and it is of recent origin and has its root in US economy. Over the years, from the simple mechanism of exchange of goods and services, it has transformed into a complex system of industrial production and commercial system. The supplies for manufacturing organization got disrupted during the World War I. The shortage during the war and heavy inventories built up both contributed to a better realization of inventories problem. This helped in understanding the significance of materials management. With the advent of the Industrial Revolution, as a result of the improved technology, coupled with the economic prosperity, the focus shifted from mass production and marketing. The population explosion along with the income revolution further fueled the demand for the wide range of the products and services. The 1970s witnessed significant changes in the character of materials management. Materials management concept was used in World War I, but before World War I, people were unaware of the significance of materials management, inventory control, and the supply chain management. During the World War I, materials management slowly evolved and had its root of evolution in US economy. Before the First World War, that is before 1914, the materials was available in large quantity. But during the World War, that is from 1914 to 1918, there was a threat for the shortage of materials. During 1920 to 21, heavy inventory during a business collapse was there. In 1920, the control of materials management and the maintenance and repairs of materials was said to be the major responsibility of the purchase managers in the industries. During 1926 to 29, flawless prosperity, prolonged depression contributed to a better understanding of the problems faced in the inventory control. During 1930, better understanding of the issues in the inventory control led to the improved means of transportation and communications, recognition of unnecessary costs of excessive inventory, rapid technological changes in the products and manufacturing. During 1939 to 45, the increase in the military personnel and materials requirement in US Defense Force entered a single largest buyer with increasing emphasis on quality standards. After the Second World War, there was a shortage of material, increased production and increased the population, the increased demand for the materials and most increased need for the materials management was felt here. In 1945, that is after the Second World War, the Bactrian entirely a new approach to the management was made, that is the materials management. The evolution of materials management was little slower in India than the rest of the world. The armed forces were the first one to adopt various practices of materials management by the name logistics management. Establishment of Indian Stores Department in 1922 was the precursor of materials management adoption in India. In the corporate sector, Tisco was the first one to establish a central purchase department for materials. The evolution of globalization meant new challenges for the Indian corporate world, as it meant that corporates have to move from government protected system to an environment where they have to contend with the market forces, large corporations with a significant brand equity and who follow different sources, strategies and practices. This led to the realization of the importance of the efficient processes in the Indian corporate sector. To compete in the global level, some of the Indian corporates have adopted new technologies, especially information technology, and are slowly integrating themselves with the rest of the world and understanding the future global trends to work towards finding a place among the leading economies. But most of the industries have still adopted to the recent trends, and this proving to be a barrier to the future growth of those industries and can be the cause of their ultimate downfall. In the mid of 1960s, a dramatic growth of the materials management concept was made in India. Although the interest in the materials management grew during this period, the concept of historical origins date to the 1800s when US railroads organized under the materials management concept during the later half of the 19th century. They combined related functions such as purchasing, inventory control, receiving and stores under the authority of one individual. The external events directly affected the operation of the typical firm. The Vietnam War, for example, resulted in upward price and materials availability pressures. During 1970s, the firms experienced the problems of materials related to the oil shortages. The logical response of the industry was to become more efficient, particularly in the purchase and the control of the materials. There was a widespread agreement about the primary objective of materials concept and the functions that might fall under the materials umbrella. The overall objective of materials management was to solve the materials problems from a total system viewpoint, rather than the viewpoint of individual functions or the activities. The various functions that may fall under the material umbrella included material planning and control, inventory planning and control, materials procurement and research, purchasing, incoming traffic, receiving, incoming quality control, stores, materials movement, scrap and the surplus disposal. The behavior of purchasing during this period was notable one. Purchasing managers emphasized multiple sourcing through competitive bid pricing and rarely viewed the supplier as a value-added partner. Buyers maintained an arm's length relationships with the suppliers. Price competition was said to be the major factor determining the supply contracts. The purchasing strategies and behaviors that evolved over the last half century were inadequate, and with the severe economic recession of the early 1980s and the emergence of foreign global competitors occurred. Overall, the function was relegated to the secondary status in many companies. Dean Ammer's classic 1974 article in the Harvard Business Review categorized the top management view of purchasing as a passive, risk-averse and a dead-end job. Hamid felt overcoming this perception could be accomplished by active purchasing, which is measured in terms of meeting overall company objectives and contributing to the bottom line profitability. He argued that purchasing executive should be part of non-purchasing decisions. For the entire organization loses, then purchasing is not a part of organization's consensus on major decisions. Finally, Arnold suggested that functions should have sufficient stature to report top management or division manager. However, this happened only in 37% of his responding firms. Hope this will be useful to understand the evolution and history of materials management at the global level and also the national level. Welcome learners. I am Dr. Amuda from School of Management, Shastra University. Now we shall see in this session about the materials management. The significance of materials management in any organization and how the manager is going to manage the materials, issue, receipt, storing, etc. in an organization. Now we shall see this materials management as a function. It is one of the functional areas in any organization. It is an area covered by the whole process of the management. For a balanced growth and effective running of an enterprise, it is necessary that material cost, material supply and material utilization are to be controlled, because this will lead to maximization of the production, reduction in the production cost, reduction in the distribution cost, thereby resulting in a profit maximization. Materials management helps in reducing the cost of the materials and prevents huge amount of capital to be locked up for a long period, and it improves the capital turnover ratio. At the end, it achieves the higher profitability. As the material cost forms part of more than 70% of the total cost of production, sometimes it will be nearly 3/4 of the total cost. This material is to be controlled scientifically by any organization. Now we shall see what is to be called as a material. Normally, the materials are divided into the following categories. The basic raw materials, the components that are used in a production, work in progress, finished goods, spare parts, consumables, machinery and equipment, inflammables, chemicals, furniture, the general stores, scrap raw materials, packing materials, fuel stock. These are some of the examples of the materials to be maintained in an organization. Normally, these materials are to be stored and preserved by an organization carefully. The stores manager has to classify the materials, give codification to the different materials and store it in a most suitable manner. We can put it in another way, more scientific manner, in a very planned manner. These materials are to be stored and issued to the production departments as and when required. Before going to the depth of the various classification of the materials, the procedure for the purchase of materials, the procedure for the issue of materials, the valuation of the materials issued, how to account for the cost of materials in the total cost of production, etc. We will now see what is meant by materials management. Materials management is normally the management of the material flow in an organization from the stores to the place where the finished goods are produced. It is a process by which an organization is supplied with goods and services that it needs to achieve its objectives. The materials management begins with the supplier and ends with the consumption of materials and converted into a finished product. The executives of an organization who engage in the materials management have to follow three main activities: purchase of materials, storing of materials, and how to issue the materials, that is, moving of materials from the stores to the production points, or put it in another sense, to the place where it has been converted into finished goods. Finished goods are those goods which are ready for consumption. Raw materials are those materials which are said to be the materials which are to be converted by further processing. It cannot be consumed as such. The materials are to be further processed by the techniques of production, and it has to be converted into a finished product for consumption. Work in progress is also a part of your inventory. The name itself says work is in progress. The work has been started and not yet completed. It loses the form of raw material, but it is not fully finished. Only if it is 100% complete, we can call it as finished goods. If it is 90% complete and 10% incomplete, it can be called as work in progress. The other way is also a work in progress. 10% complete and 90% incomplete is also work in progress. Work in progress is neither raw material nor a finished goods. This work in progress will have to be maintained in any production process. Any manufacturing industry will have a work in progress at the beginning of the year and also at the end of the year. Now we shall see the definition given by Lee and Dobler. It is a traditional material activities bounded by a common idea. The idea being an integrated management approach to planning, acquisition, conversion, flow and distribution of production materials from the raw material state into a finished product state. So they tell about the purchase of materials, acquisition of materials, conversion of materials, and then distribution of the materials. The definition given by International Federation of Purchasing and Materials Management comes as follows. Material management is a total concept involving an organizational structure unifying into a single responsibility. The systematic flow and control of material from the identification of the need through customer delivery. It includes the planning, scheduling, buying, storing, moving, and distributing. These functions are logically represented by the various disciplines of production and inventory control, purchasing and physical distribution. The main objective of materials management is to contribute to the increased profitability rate by coordinating the activities which involve in the reduction of the cost. This materials management can also be carried through optimizing the capital investment, the capacity of the organization, the personnel involved, and the consistency with the maintenance of the customer service levels. National Association of Purchasing Management defines materials management as an organizational concept in which a single manager has authority and responsibility for all activities principally concerned with the flow of materials into an organization. Purchasing, production, planning and scheduling, the inventory control, the receiving of stores, the issue of stores are also included in materials management. American Production and Inventory Control Society defines materials management as it is a term to describe the grouping of management functions related to the complete cycle of material flow from the purchase and internal control of production materials to the planning and control of work in progress to the warehousing, shipping and distribution of the finished product. It differs from the material control in that the latter term traditionally is limited to the internal control of production materials. From all these definitions, we can easily infer that the materials management is related right from planning of materials till it is consumed in the production departments. Let us now see another definition given by Gopalakrishnan and Sundaresan. They say that it is a function responsible for the coordination of planning, sourcing, purchasing, moving, storing and controlling the materials in an optimum manner so as to provide a pre-desired service to the customer at a minimum cost. So Gopalakrishnan and Sundaresan says that materials management function is always related to the other management functions and it relates with the complete cycle of materials flow right from purchasing, production and inventory control, material handling, packaging, traffic and distribution. All these functions are grouped together and they are under the direct control of one line manager. All sections of the materials management strive to attain the fundamental objectives of materials management. The inventory control is also an integral part of materials management, and it is concerned with the internal control of the production materials. The significance of the materials management cannot be overemphasized in this competitive world. It affects not only a particular industry but the entire economic activity of a whole nation. Materials contribute to the quality of the end product. Only if the quality of the raw material is good, the quality of the finished goods will be acceptable one. The amount that is spent on materials is increasing in relation to the expenditures on the other inputs of production. These materials will definitely add value to the final product. The margin between the value of raw materials and finished products is known as the value added. It is otherwise called as value added by production. It is the conversion cost we have. Total cost minus the material cost will be the conversion cost. The cost of converting a raw material into a finished product is said to be the basic margin. It is otherwise called as the value added to the production. And these raw materials will form part of the current assets in any organization. Conservation of materials and their availability for the prosperity is said to be one of the social responsibilities of a business. Materials management is one of the centers of accountability for performance. Reduction in the material cost by about 5% is always possible through an effective management of materials. Evidences prove that skillful and imaginative management has been able to save even more than this 5% of the total cost of the final product.